You ever wake up to find your whole life boxed in by someone else's ego? Yeah, that's how it started for me, stepping outside before sunrise, expecting a quiet cup of coffee, only to see two massive diesel trucks jammed across my garage, like some monster had parked them there in its sleep engines, still ticking oil, already staining my concrete. The smell hit me first, a hot metallic cloud mixed with that burnt oil tang that takes you back to every busted carburetor you ever fixed in your life. But what really burned was the sight of Brenda standing at her kitchen window, mug in hand, grinning like she'd just checkmated me, and I never even realized we were playing. What Brenda didn't know, and oh, this is rich, is that garage she blocked. I'd leased it to the county sheriff's department for the past year and a half, ever since medical bills and lost sleep turned my world upside down after Sarah, my wife, passed on. It wasn't much, $400 a month, but when you're living on a threadbare pension and disability, it's the difference between sinking and keeping your head above water. Deputy Martinez would swing by twice a week, polite professional stashing tactical gear and sometimes bringing me leftover donuts just to keep the place feeling like home. That arrangement, my literal lifeline, was about to be used against me in ways I never saw coming. You see, Brenda was new to the neighborhood, but she hit the ground running like a one-woman SWAT team for misery. Within a week, she'd landed on the HOA board, barking about community standards and property values, which everyone with a brain knows really means I want to control everything. Her husband, Chuck, nice enough guy, if you could ever spot him between long stints working oil rigs in Louisiana, seemed to stay gone on purpose. But Brenda, she was right there all the time, organizing barbecues that shook the siding off my house, parking her company trucks wherever she pleased, and running her landscaping business out of her living room. Let me back up a sec. That first time I asked her to move her trucks, not rude, just matter of fact, since Deputy Martinez needed his spot, she barely looked up from her catered spread and fired off, "Don't be so dramatic, Dale. It's just overflow parking. One afternoon won't kill you." Only it wasn't one afternoon. 6 hours later, those trucks were still there, and when Martinez finally arrived, he had to wade through a maze of commercial mowers and mulch bags, acting cool, but shooting me a look that said, "Man, you got problems." That's when I realized this wasn't about parking. This was about dominance. Brenda wanted everyone to know who was boss, and in her mind, I was just an old man standing in her way. Not long after, she started taking photos of my property, my fence, my garden, even Rex's doghouse, all documented like she was planning a hostile takeover. Next came the official notice: unapproved commercial activity. Cease within 30 days or face $2,000 fine. All because I rented my garage to the county sheriff. I stared at that letter then, at Brenda's smirk through the kitchen window, and felt something inside me shift from maybe this'll blow over to time to get serious. But you know what? When you spend 28 years fixing cars at Ford, you learn a thing or two about reading people, about patience, about digging for the truth underneath layers of grime. So I headed to the county courthouse, spent my Saturday breathing old paper and mildew, and sure enough, Martha the clerk found my original deed. Turns out my garage was built 15 years before the HOA even existed. Grandfathered use. Brenda could shake her papers and waive her board minutes, but the law was on my side, and not just barely rock solid. I even dug up the municipal code for commercial vehicles. Guess whose trucks, both over 12,000 pounds, were violating overnight parking laws? Yep, Brenda's. When the HOA board called me in for my trial, Brenda sat dead center, shuffling papers like a prosecutor. I dropped the deed on the table and watched her face go from smug to ghost white in 5 seconds flat. Frank, an old-timer on the board, actually laughed out loud. "Dale's got you, Brenda. I remember when he built that garage. She tried to pivot talking zoning laws, but I had photos, records, everything. Turned out her own trucks were the real problem." The board dismissed her complaint and wrote her up for violations instead. Walking home, I saw her in the window phone glued to her ear, probably calling every lawyer in Texas. But Brenda wasn't done. Next thing you know, I'm getting city letters about my quasi-commercial district with attached photos of Martinez's squad car in my driveway, all worded perfectly for maximum trouble. That's when I met Jennifer at City Planning, and sometimes the world's smaller than you think her mom was on the HOA board, and lucky for me, still had some sense of fairness. See, Brenda never got the right permits for her own business, running landscaping ops out of her house, parking commercial trucks overnight, client meetings, cash changing hands, all without the paperwork. I handed that to Jennifer and watched her go pale. 2 weeks later at the city hearing, Brenda rolled in, swinging briefcase full of evidence. But I went last, laid out every violation she'd committed point by point, and for once the city commission did what was right. Complaint dismissed. Violations issued to her. You'd think she'd back off? Nope. Next came the vandalism. Scratched mailbox insurance claims about Deputy Martinez's patrol car damaging her fence. Mildred's sweetest 78-year-old you'd ever meet, memory like a steel trap, caught Brenda on her Ring camera spray painting scratches after the so-called accident. The insurance guy took one look and told her, "Ma'am, you withdraw this claim or we file for fraud." She folded, but not before everyone in town heard the story. From there, it was just one dirty trick after another. Complaints to animal control about Rex health inspections, even an anonymous tip that landed me with a surprise property tax reassessment conveniently right after all the official channels failed her. Only this time, Brenda made her fatal mistake targeting not just me, but every older resident on the block. Noise complaints against Mrs. Patterson's AC parking citations for the Rodriguez family's work truck, you name it. All traced back to one source. Now, small towns aren't perfect, but when push comes to shove, people rally. Mildred started a neighborhood group. Frank dug through HOA records. Mrs. Patterson organized legal resources. And pretty soon we had a whole coalition. Businesses pitched in too. The hardware store kept tabs on Brenda's attempts to buy more cameras. The diner owner overheard her plotting with contractors. We built a case that could flatten a freight train. Brenda, running out of patience, started getting sloppy. Motor oil dumped on my driveway. Bolts loosened on my mailbox. Garden hose slashed Rex's water bowl, poisoned that one, nearly put me over the edge. We caught every bit on camera, handed it straight to the sheriff, and our lawyer, Rebecca, who, as luck would have it, was Deputy Martinez's sister. She laid out the pattern for law enforcement, who started to see this wasn't neighbor drama, it was organized harassment, maybe worse. But the final straw, Brenda's construction barriers blocking fire trucks during a house fire, put there deliberately according to receipts and witness statements. That pushed everything into criminal territory. The whole town turned out for the council meeting. I brought audio of Brenda trying to bribe me 20 grand Dale and all your problems go away. She even threatened Rex. The room went dead silent when they heard her voice, calm as ice, laying out her scheme. Mayor Rodriguez announced a criminal investigation right then. The sheriff arrested Brenda in front of the whole town, and Chuck, I almost felt bad for the guy, finally filed for divorce. 3 months later, Millfield was different. Peaceful. My garage, officially part of the county's emergency operations, brought in enough for me to breathe easy. Brenda's business collapsed. Our new neighbors brought cookies, and even Rex got a badge as honorary K9. Frank ran for HOA president, won by a landslide, in his first order term limits and mandatory recorded meetings. Transparency, not tyranny. Sitting on my porch now, coffee in hand, Rex snoring at my feet. I finally feel like this is home again, not because we won some war, but because people stood up for each other when it counted. So what do you think? Did justice win out, or did Brenda just get what was coming to her? Drop your wildest HOA story in the comments hit. Like, if you've ever tangled with a neighborhood tyrant, and don't forget, in the end, sunlight's the best disinfectant.